So we're going to talk a little bit about Acts. Does anybody know who the book of Acts was written by? Yep, it was. It was written by Luke. And it was written somewhere around, they say, 63 to 70 AD. So quite a ways afterwards. But it talks, the book of Acts is kind of a follow-on to the Gospels, where it talks about the activities of the disciples and what they did after Jesus rose back into heaven. So this is where we're going to start, and we're going to talk about some of the things that occur there. The first thing we want to run through is what we're going to do today is spreading the gospel when Peter heals the crippled beggar. So the disciples are now in Jerusalem, and specifically this is Peter and John. So Peter and John, Acts 3:1 says that one day Peter and John were going up to the temple at the time of prayer at 3 in the afternoon. So why do you think the disciples were going to the temple? To pray? What kind of temple was it? The Jewish temple. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So now we have Christians going to the Jewish temple. Anybody ever think about that before? So the Jews are worshiping there. So the Christians would actually go, the temples were kind of this structure. They were one of the focal points of any town or any city. And so the Christians would go and worship at the temples on off times when the Jews weren't already using it. And it was kind of a gathering place, and there were a lot of different people there. So can somebody read Acts 3:2 to 5 for me?
Now a man who was lame from birth was being carried to the temple gate called Beautiful, where he was put every day to beg from those who were lame. When he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked them for money. Peter looked straight at him, as did John. Then Peter said, "Look at us." So the man gave them his attention, expecting to get something.
Okay. So the temple's a pretty busy place. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of people walking by. So the beggars would stand there and try and get people to give them money or food or something like that. Do we see that today?
Yep.
So you have people there begging, and what do we all want to do when we see them? What's our first instinct? Look the other way, right? Like we kind of want to just don't pay attention, don't look, right? It's easier to do. You don't want to deal with the situation. It's sometimes kind of tough. So instead, we have a different situation here. Peter walks over and says, "Look at us." So not only is he engaging, but he's trying to make eye contact and really pay attention so that he can talk to this beggar that's there. So we get this picture of a whole bunch of things going on, and all of a sudden someone just stopping and looking directly at this beggar. So when they do that, this is what Peter says. Somebody read this for me?
Silver or gold I do not have, but what I do have I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, walk. Taking him by the right hand, he helped him up, and instantly the man's feet and ankle became strong. He jumped to his feet and began to walk.
So this is really interesting. So the first thing that he does is he says, he doesn't ask him to walk, he tells him to walk. It's almost a command, which is kind of cool because he's basically giving a command based on Jesus. And he's saying, get up and walk. Now, just imagine you've seen somebody who can't walk and has been in the same place every day. Metro, great example, right? You walk by the same person, and all of a sudden, one day, somebody goes over and says, walk, and all of a sudden the person gets up. That's pretty crazy, actually. And then he went with him into the temple courts, walking and jumping. Just think about it. If you were walking for the first time, you'd probably be jumping. You'd be going crazy. And then all the people saw him, and all these people who were there every day, because that's what they do, they go to the temple, they realize, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I can't believe this has just happened. And all of a sudden, you have this wonder and amazement, like it says, that they're seeing, and everyone is just shocked at how this is going on. So you know, toss the crutch, the guy's off dancing around. But what did Peter do after this? Then Peter started talking, almost preaching. So now we're at a, what kind of temple again? Jewish temple. And you have a Christ follower who just healed somebody, who is now dancing around the courtyard. And then he starts preaching. Well, that's a pretty interesting thing to do. I mean, we kind of expect it, right? Like, we've probably all heard the story before. But think about that. You heal somebody, and then in front of a whole bunch of people you don't know, you just start preaching the gospel. That's pretty crazy. So, after this happens, the priest and the Sadducees get nervous. And they're going, oh, man, we got to stop this. Look what this guy's doing. It's going against... I just kind of figure, I think they're sitting there and they go, oh, you gotta be kidding me, not again. Like, we already had this Jesus guy doing this, and now we got more people, his followers are doing the same kind of stuff he did. And before, they were a little, shyer. Now they're not. Man, that's crazy. So they actually pick up Peter and John, they put them in jail overnight. They don't really have any good reason. They pick them up and put them in jail because they can. And the next day, the rulers and elders and the teachers of the law met in Jerusalem. Annas the high priest was there, and so were Caiaphas and John and Alexander, another of the high priest family. They had Peter and John brought before them and began to question them. By what power or name did you do this thing? I bet that guy would like to have that question back and ask it another way. Because they basically just paved the path for this. Can somebody read this for me? Thanks, man.
Then Peter, filled with the Holy Spirit, said to them, rulers and elders of the people, if we are being called to the account today for an act of kindness shown to a man who was slain, and are being asked on how he was healed, then know this, and all the people of Israel, it is by the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, whom you crucified, but whom God raised from the dead, that this man stands before you healed.
Whoops. Maybe you should ask how the guy got healed, because it wouldn't have tied in quite so well. That, which probably had to make everybody go, wow. Because if you think about it, you hear about great speeches and amazing speeches, and imagine being in a room and you're grilling this guy and he comes up with that. Well, that's got to be tough to respond to. So, but think about this a second. Is that a pretty bold thing to do? I mean, these are people that could put you in jail and they don't really have to have a reason. But he did it anyway. And, Peter has a track record of making sure that he's supportive of Jesus at all. So, what did he do? When the night Jesus was crucified? Denied him 3 times. So talk about a transformation. We had a guy who was trying to hide from this whole thing and denying Jesus because he wanted to make sure that he could stay safe. And now, rather than somebody asking him in the street, he's basically something akin to a court being grilled on this by all of the leadership. And he stands up and says, I did this via Jesus Christ. And by the way, you're really going to give me grief and get on me for healing a person? Seriously? Where's the bad part of this? So all of a sudden you have this bold step taken by someone who you wouldn't have expected necessarily based on track record to do this. And then he finishes with this. Salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven to mankind by which we must be saved. Not can be saved, must be saved. Because can means, maybe it's an option. If you want to be saved, this is the way you must do it. Another really bold statement. Be bold. Bold's an interesting word, right? We think of bold and it can mean sort of outlandish sometimes, but sometimes it's more around daring or risk-taking. There's a lot of different ways to take risks, right? You can take a risk by trying something new. You can take a risk by doing something dangerous. Coming up is one of my favorite things, the Winter Olympics. I love the Olympics. I basically watch TV 10 times as much as I do any other time of the year, because if I have a free moment, I watch the Olympics. But there are bold and risky things you do in the Olympics. Ski jumping, for instance. I mean, who doesn't want to go hurtling, 100 and some feet in the air at, 50 miles an hour, running downhill, and pray you make the landing, right? No, not bold at all. Or short track speed skating, because what could go wrong? All you could do is fall down and slam into a wall. So you end up with somebody like this, like that. What do you think's going through that guy's mind right now? That's just not, that's not too good. And that's pretty unfortunate too, because you have about a quarter of a second before you slam into that big cushioned wall after going at full speed.
That's so cheap.
Yes, it was so cheap. I had to pick an Olympics one. So these are bold things that we can do. There are risks that we can take. And there's a lot of kinds of other risks that we can take, right? So as we look at that, faith itself is actually bold, if you think about it. So what is our faith predicated on? Okay, so there was the Virgin Mary who had a baby. Okay, that takes some faith. That's a little bit of a bold statement. Then we have a guy who was crucified, died, and then was seen walking around later. Okay, that's pretty bold too. And there's a bunch of other bold things that have happened in our faith. Some guy walked up and was like, "It'd be cool if this sea spread open for a little while so I can walk through here, because I'm kind of in a hurry with people chasing me." There's a lot of bold things in the Christian faith. So our faith itself is bold. So we need to be bold in our faith. It's not just about believing. It's not just about understanding. We need to read our Bibles. We need to do all the things that we've been commanded to do. But we talked about in the fall, who was here when we talked about the Great Commission? Anybody remember the Great Commission? We talked about that? A couple people? I remember it because I was trying to get ready for this and I saw the video, so it helped. The Great Commission told us to basically what? In one sentence. Go and spread Christianity. Perfect. Well, that's a little bold. So being bold in our faith means that we need to live our faith outwardly and share our faith with others. And that's exactly what Peter was doing here. Peter was going and he was living his faith and proclaiming it. Not just proclaiming it to the people who wanted to take him down, basically. And he did it in a way where after that, they actually let him go. After that speech, they let him go. Some other stuff happened after that. We should come back to Peter because we really talked about that part. But they actually let him go because he was spreading the faith, because he was being bold. If he'd have been timid, do you think they'd let him go? I don't know. I honestly don't know. If you think about it, have you ever seen somebody who looks really, really confident and says things and they sound like they're true and they just aren't? Because they sound really confident when they do them? This is DC, that never happens. That's a risk. If you are bold and you are strong, then you come off looking better and more authoritative. That's hard to do. It's hard to do that. But it helps land the message. So, if you found yourself in a situation like Peter or John, how would you respond? What would you do? Not that you're necessarily walking away healing someone. It doesn't have to be quite that dramatic. But what would you do if you found yourself in a position where somebody's like, hey, why are you doing that thing? Do you say, well, that's my faith. My faith tells me that's what I'm supposed to do. Or do you not? You have a choice.